There are places in the world where evil doesn't hide in shadows. It sits openly, festering in plain sight. And some people, like me, are tasked with tracking it. My name is Father Elias Vero. The Vatican doesn't talk about me. Officially, I don't exist. But when something unholy slips through the cracks, I'm dispatched. And in my line of work, there are rules, strange, rigid, sacred rules. Break one, and it won't just be your soul that's lost. The train screeched to a halt just outside Verona as rain tapped relentlessly against the window pane. A cold mist curled over the tracks like fingers beckoning something unseen. I stepped off with my duffel bag slung over my shoulder, its contents rattling with every step. Silver crucifixes, consecrated salt, relics, and 2 vials of holy oil. I've been summoned for a classy haunting, but my gut told me it was worse. They never call a demon tracker for something mild. I walked through cobbled streets toward the convent of Santa Maria del Amber. It looked peaceful, quaint even. Ivy draped down its ancient stone walls, and yellow candlelight flickered behind stained glass windows. But that peace was a lie. I could feel in my bones. Something had stirred. Sister Magdalena met me at the gate, her eyes sunken with fatigue and fear. She didn't speak right away, only motioned for me to follow her through the courtyard and into the chapel. 3 girls, she finally whispered. They've gone silent, catatonic. Something speaks through them. She handed me a folder, medical reports, photographs, testimonies. I barely needed to read them. The signs were all there. Tongues spoken in reverse. Eyes blackened with no physical cause. Scratches on the skin in ancient Aramaic. But one detail chilled me. All 3 had spoken a phrase before going silent. Ego vidi abyssum, iti abyssus vidit me. I saw the abyss, and the abyss saw me. Rule number 1. Never speak the possessed words aloud, not even in prayer. I took up temporary residence in the convent's old bell tower, far from the afflicted. I spent that first night consecrating the walls and floors, laying salt lines and lighting blessed candles. Every preparation had to be exact, not for protection. No, nothing protects a demon tracker. The rules only buy us time. The following morning, I requested to see the girls. They were kept in the lower infirmary, each in a separate room. I started with Lucia, the youngest. She lay curled on a cot, her fingers twitching rhythmically. Her mouth moved without sound, repeating something endlessly. I stepped closer. A burst of cold air struck me like a slap. Lucia's eyes flew open, black, glossy, vacant. Her mouth froze, then stretched into a grotesque smile far too wide for a delicate face. "You're too late," she rasped, her voice deeper than a child should be. "She walks the halls already." I stepped back. Rule number 2, never believe a demon's timeline. Lies are their camouflage. What walks the halls? I asked carefully, already recording her voice on a Vatican-issued talisman hidden in my coat. The device would analyze frequency, pitch, and hidden languages. It was a small miracle of modern theology. "She," Lucia hissed. "She who eats the faithful. She who waits beneath the iron altar. Her name is..." Lucia's body convulsed violently, then slumped. She was out cold. I turned on my heel and rushed out, but the hallway had changed. It was longer, darker. That's when I knew it had begun manifesting. Rule number 3, once manifestation begins, do not attempt communication alone. I returned to the bell tower in silence. avoiding Sister Magdalena's questions. I needed time to think, to decipher what demon had been summoned and how. But something caught my attention on the ceiling above my bed, a small smear of blood. I climbed up and inspected the wooden rafters. A single Latin word was scratched into the beams. Malfera, a demoness, rare, ancient, forgotten by most exorcists. But I'd seen her name before, in the sealed Vatican archives marked forbidden. She wasn't summoned. She woke up. Rule number 4. Some demons aren't sent. They're remembered. And remembering is invitation. That night I dreamt. I stood at the altar of the convent's chapel. Except it was twisted. Its walls dripped black ichor, and a charred statue of the Virgin wept blood. The pews were filled with motionless nuns, their heads bowed. One of them looked up. It was Lucia. Her eyes were still black. She pointed at me. Then they all looked up at once. Their mouths opened in unison, and they spoke with one voice. Rule 5. You broke Rule 5. I jolted awake, heart hammering. Rule #5. I grabbed the Vatican Tracker's manual from my duffel and flipped through the pages. The rules are drilled into us during training, but I hadn't thought about the 5th in years. Then I found it. Rule number 5. Never sleep under a demon's name. I stared at the ceiling, where the word Malfera still lingered. It wasn't there when I arrived. My mistake. My punishment. As I stood to erase the inscription with blessed water, the bell tower suddenly rang out with a single, thunderous gong. Just one. It wasn't time for Mass. No one else was supposed to have access to the bell. I ran up the steps. Each footfall echoed louder than it should have. When I reached the belfry, the room was empty, except for one thing. Hanging from the bell's pull rope was a rosary made from teeth. Human teeth. Child-sized. Rule number 6. If the relics start to change, you are no longer alone. The air thickened with the scent of sulfur. I stepped back instinctively, and the bell gave another clang. This one lower, distorted, like it had been struck underwater. I descended quickly, breath shallow, chest tight. The convent below felt colder now. Wrong. Sister Magdalena met me at the bottom of the stairwell, pale and trembling. Lucia is gone. What do you mean gone? I asked. She walked out of her locked room. The camera footage, Father Elias, there's no footage. It's just static. We rushed back down to the infirmary. Lucia's bed was empty. The salt line across her door had been broken, not walked through. It looked as though something had dragged its claw across it, melting the grains into the floorboards. Rule number 7. If the salt burns, it's already crossed over. We scoured the convent, room by room, cloister by cloister, but we didn't find Lucia. We found Sister Helena. What was left of her? She'd been nailed to the chapel wall, arms spread like a crucifix, her mouth stitched shut with rosary wire. Her eyes were wide open, as if still watching. Above her head, written in ash, was one word. Remember. Sister Magdalena collapsed to her knees and wept. I stood motionless, heart racing. I'd never seen Malfera's work firsthand, but the message was clear. She wasn't just feeding on the weak or the sinful. She was feeding on belief itself, turning sacred into profane, faith into fuel. Rule number 8. The stronger your faith, the louder your screams. I had to act. We didn't have days. We didn't have hours. The manifestation was accelerating. I needed help. And there was only one man who had faced Malfera and survived. Father Bellamy, a retired tracker who had vanished after an exorcism gone wrong in Argentina. But I knew where to find him. because I had tracked his signal 2 years ago. He'd gone completely dark after breaking one of the final, unwritten rules. Rule number 9, never leave a summoning incomplete. It meant he had unfinished business with Malfra. It meant he knew how to fight her, or at least I tried. I packed my gear and gave Sister Magdalena strict orders to isolate the remaining 2 girls. I reinforced their rooms with triple salt lines, sealed prayers carved into the floor with silver blades, and oil lamps blessed by the Pontifex himself. Before I left, I returned once more to the chapel. Sister Helena's body had been taken down, but her shadow still remained on the wall, as if scorched into the stone. I knelt and whispered a prayer, not for her, but for myself, because rule number 10 is simple. If the shadow remains, it's already begun to follow you. And I had just broken rule number 10. There are rules we follow to keep the darkness at bay. But what happens when even those rules are no longer enough? I thought I was prepared. I thought I'd faced evil. But Malfra is older than doctrine, older than light. And now that I've broken the 10th rule, I can feel her watching me. Every prayer echoes back with silence. The flight to Marseille was long, quiet, and frigid. I didn't sleep. I wouldn't dare. The shadow still followed me, not in the usual way demons linger, through dreams or whispers, but as a living presence behind every reflection. In the window beside me, the glass fogged in the shape of open eyes. At the airport bathroom mirror, my silhouette blinked. The bell tower shadow was now mine. Father Bellamy had vanished from Vatican records after an exorcism at an orphanage in Buenos Aires. I'd traced whispers, black market exorcist forums, old hunter networks until the signal led here. A half-burned down abbey on the outskirts of Provence. No address, just a name scribbled on a holy card in blood. Abbe Saint Sepulchre. I hired a local driver, told him it was a religious pilgrimage. The man laughed nervously but drove anyway, crossing himself every few miles. Mon père, he said as we reached the gravel road that led into the woods. They say that place, things scream in Latin when the moon is new. I thanked him and got out. He left quickly. The abbey was a husk of its former self, overgrown, decayed, half consumed by ivy and ash. Yet I could feel it, the wards, faint, dying, but still active. Holy sigils etched into every visible surface, drawn in soot and old blood. I passed through the shattered archway, calling out softly, "Father Bellamy." A shuffling came from deep within the nave. I followed the sound until I found him. He was hunched near what was once the altar, building something with bone and salt. His beard was wild, his eyes yellowed at the edges, and his cassock was tattered and scorched. "You came too late," he rasped without looking at me. "You know who I am?" I asked, stepping cautiously closer. "No," he replied, "but I know the sound of a man already damned." I swallowed hard. "It's about Malfra." He turned slowly. For a moment, he didn't blink. Then he smiled bitterly. So they woke her. She wasn't summoned. She remembered. Bellamy dropped the vertebra he was holding. Then she's choosing now. She only does that when she's nearly whole again. I sat across from him on the broken altar step. 3 girls are possessed. 1 has gone missing. A nun has been crucified. And I've already broken 3 rules. He looked at me with deadened eyes. "Which ones?" I told him. Bellamy laughed without humor. "Then you got 3 days max. After that, she starts nesting. Nesting. Malfra doesn't just possess. She breeds through memory. She plants herself in the mind of the believer, hatches doubt, then takes the body like a parasite. She's doing more than that, I whispered. She left me a rosary made of teeth. Bellamy flinched. Then she's in phase 2. I pulled out my Vatican talisman. I record her voice. I need to know what I'm up against. He snatched the device and crushed it under his boot. What are you doing? I shouted. Rule 11. He hissed. Never record a demon's voice. It's not just sound. It's structure. It builds her. I staggered back. They never taught us that. Bellamy leaned in close. Because no one who breaks it lives long enough to report it. The abbey's walls groaned. A chill wind swept through the shattered stained glass above. For the first time since arriving, I noticed the large crucifix above the altar was missing. Bellamy saw my gaze. She took him. On the second night. Said he was tasteless now. I felt nauseous. I need to banish her. You can't, he said. Not directly. Not yet. Then what do? There's a ritual. The Scorporare animum. You force the demon into a host shell, then isolate it. But requires 3 anchors. What kind? He held up 3 fingers. The one who first saw her. The one who invited her. And the one who survived her. Lucia, whoever summoned her. And you. Bellamy went still. No, he said coldly. I don't go near her again. If you don't, she wins. Permanently. He was silent for a long time. Then he reached beneath the altar and withdrew a small, ancient scroll sealed with crimson wax. Take this to the convent. Prepare a triad circle. And find the one who invited her. Fast. Because once the nesting begins, she spreads through thought itself. I left the abbey at dusk, the scroll tucked safely against my chest, and the name de Scorporare animum burning in my mind. I returned to the convent by sunrise. The air was heavier, charged. The birds were silent. Even the nuns refused to meet my eyes. Sister Magdalena pulled me aside immediately. She came back. Lucia. I asked, stunned. She nodded. Alone, standing at the gate at dawn. But she's not right. She led me to a small locked chamber where Lucia sat in a chair, hands folded, eyes bright and human again. Good morning, Father, she said sweetly. Every instinct in my body screamed. She was too calm, too clean. You remember what happened? I asked, trying to bait the entity. Oh yes, she nodded. I walked the halls. I heard the singing, but the darkness is gone now. I turned to Sister Magdalena. Get her out of here. What? Because that's not Lucia. Lucia's smile widened. She knows, she whispered, and then she vomited up salt. Handfuls. Crystalline. Hissing. Burning the floor. Sister Magdalena screamed. Lucia's body began to spasm, her limbs cracking at unnatural angles. And then she spoke. I nested. Lucia collapsed. A symbol began burning in her chest. A black spiral with 3 dots. Bellamy had shown me the same one carved into the abbey's altar. The nesting phase had begun. I carried Lucia into the triad circle I'd inscribed earlier that morning with the scroll's guidance. Holy oils, blessed chalk, and powdered relics marked the borders. She writhed, screamed, then stilled as I placed the first anchor symbol on her forehead. 2 more anchors needed. I called Bellamy. No answer. I then turned to the security record Sister Magdalena had mentioned. Even though the footage was corrupted, the convent's fire-safe logs recorded keypad entries. At 2:11 a.m., exactly when Lucia disappeared, the chapel's old maintenance room was opened. Only one person had that code. Sister Magdalena. I confronted her in private. Why did you open that door?" Her lips trembled. I thought I heard a voice. A girl crying. I thought one of the orphans had snuck inside. But when I opened it, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't see a child. I saw myself at age 7, alone, and she was crying blood. "You were tricked," I said gently. "I didn't invite her," she whispered. "Yes," I replied sadly. "You did, through memory." The second anchor. I had no choice but to bring her into the circle. We now had Lucia and Magdalena, but the third, the survivor, was still missing. I tried Bellamy again. Still nothing. Then I saw it, outside the chapel, nailed to the fence post. A rosary, made of my teeth, and above it, a note written in Latin. "Your shadow is no longer yours." Rule number 12. If the demon takes your reflection, it can walk in your form. Bellamy wasn't answering because Bellamy was already gone. Or worse, he was walking around as me. They say the devil's greatest trick was convincing the world he didn't exist. But Malfora doesn't hide in shadows anymore. She wears your skin, speaks in your voice, and turns your faith into poison. I broke the rules. Now I'm not sure who's hunting who, because something out there is walking around, wearing me. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. The rosary of teeth still swung from the chapel fence as if mocking me. The message etched above it burned behind my eyes like an open wound. Your shadow is no longer yours. It was rule number 12. One of the last we're warned about in training, but never told details. The kind of rule that only survives in whispers among veteran trackers. If a demon takes your reflection, it can take your form. Not possess you, mimic you. Worse, because no exorcism can cast it out, it's not inside you. It is you, in reverse. I knew what I had to do. I rushed into the convent's restricted chamber, pulled out my mirror shard from my relic kit, and stared into it. And there I was. Mostly. But then I blinked, and he didn't. I dropped the mirror. That thing had my face, and it was already walking freely somewhere. Sister Magdalena burst in, breathless and trembling. She's awake again. I followed her to the containment chamber. Lucia, if you could still call her that, was no longer thrashing or unconscious. She sat, legs crossed, humming a nursery rhyme in reverse. Her skin shimmered under the candlelight, as though something beneath it was moving, twitching, rippling, crawling. I crouched at the edge of the triad circle. "Lucia," I said gently, "can you hear me?" Her head snapped toward me, eyes jet black. Her smile peeled slowly across her face. "Which one are you?" she cooed. "The real one, or the one that watches from glass?" "I'm the one who banishes your kind." She laughed, a horrible sound like nails tapping hollow wood. "Then banish yourself," she whispered. "You've already invited me in." Suddenly, the lights flickered. Then they went out, all at once. Complete blackness. And in the darkness came a voice. My voice. "Malfora," it said, in perfect imitation of my cadence. "We're already inside the third anchor." I turned, blindly reaching for my relic lamp. When the emergency lights flickered back on, Sister Magdalena was on the ground, gasping, eyes wide, hands clutching her chest. On her forehead, the anchor symbol had inverted, corrupted. She'd been tainted. Lucia laughed, mouth stretching unnaturally wide. "You're running out of candles, Father." We had to move. Fast. I ordered the sisters to evacuate the lower floors and moved Lucia, still locked in the containment circle, to a reinforced chamber in the convent basement. I reinscribed the protection seals, but something gnawed at me. I needed a third anchor, someone who survived Malfra and hadn't yet turned. And there was only one other name linked to the Buenos Aires incident beyond Bellamy. Sister Maria de los Remedios. She was Bellamy's assistant, and according to hidden Vatican archives I'd accessed via the tracker network, she'd survived the original exorcism, barely. I sent a secure transmission to the Vatican requesting her last known location. While I waited, I turned to Magdalena, who sat in the corner, pale and shaken. "Do you remember anything strange when you unlocked that maintenance room? Any object? Any voice?" She hesitated. There was a statue, a small one, looked like a weeping angel, but it was smiling. Too wide. My blood froze. "Where is it now?" "We locked in the archive. 3rd floor." I didn't wait. I bolted up the stairs, taking 2 at a time, praying I wasn't too late. The archive door was already ajar. Inside, the Holy Relics cabinet stood open, glass shattered. And there it was, the statue. Small, marble, face childlike, except for its mouth, stretched from ear to ear. Its eyes were hollow voids, crying black resin. But the worst part, my own Vatican ID badge was embedded in its chest. She had tagged me. That statue wasn't a relic. It was a vessel, a seed, a piece of her. That's how Malfra got my reflection. That's how she took my form. I reached to destroy it. But as my fingers touched the stone, pain exploded in my skull. I staggered back, blood pouring from my nose. Voices screamed in my ears, dozens, maybe hundreds, all reciting the Lord's Prayer backward. And then I saw it, not in the statue, but in the glass beside it. Me, watching, smiling. Rule 13. The reflection whispered, "Never touch the vessel with your own hand." Then it vanished. When I regained consciousness, the sun had set. The convent was shrouded in shadow, and I could feel it. The walls breathed. The halls echoed, not with footsteps, but with crawling. Malfra was spreading. I rushed back to the containment chamber. Lucia was gone. The circle broken, symbols smudged, and drawn on the wall, in ashen blood, were 5 words. I need a new skin. Sister Magdalena was unconscious nearby. A spiral burned into her shoulder. I stabilized her, then grabbed my emergency kit. It was time to track the demon directly. But as I stepped into the corridor, I saw myself, standing at the far end, wearing my coat, holding my relic dagger, smiling. I froze. He waved, then turned and walked into the east wing. I gave chase, but as I turned the corner, he was gone. Instead, I found something else. A room I'd never seen before. Not on the convent maps. Not on my walkthrough. It was made of black stone. Cold. Silent. In the center, suspended midair, was a mirror. Circular. Framed with vertebrae. And in the mirror was not me. Not even him. It was a woman. Eyes like voids. Mouth full of nails. Hair writhing like snakes. Malfra. She was watching me. I stepped forward. The air grew heavier. I whispered a protection chant. The glass shimmered, then cracked. And then she spoke. "You were never the hunter. You were always the gate." The mirror exploded. I flew back, shards cutting deep into my arms. When I scrambled to my feet, the mirror was gone. So was the room. I was in the east wing hallway again, bleeding and dizzy. And standing before me was Sister Maria. Older now, eyes hard. She held me up without a word. "You got my message," I said. She nodded. I knew when Bellamy disappeared, It would come to this. I need you, I said. You're the third anchor. I know, she said softly, and I'm ready. We returned to the chamber, placed her in the final point of the triad, redrew the symbols, lit the blessed candles. I began the incantation of the scorporare on Imam. And that's when he arrived. The other me. He stepped into the chamber, relic dagger gleaming. Step away from the circle, he said in my exact voice. Everyone froze. Prove you're real, Sister Maria whispered. I raised my right hand. Rule 9. The possessed can't speak Latin backwards without bleeding from the eyes. Then I recited Psalm 91 in reverse. My nose bled, but not my eyes. The fake me didn't even flinch. He smiled. Wrong verse. Then he lunged. The fight was brutal. He moved like me, fought like me, anticipated everything, but he didn't pray like me. In the final moment, I used the one thing he didn't have, faith. I activated the holy fire rune on my left arm. It ignited, blinding white. He screamed, voice warping, twisting, and began to dissolve. His final words, she's already inside the candle. Then he burst into smoke. I turned. Lucia, the real Lucia, was standing inside the triad. Her eyes clear, her mouth trembling, and the ritual began. 3 anchors, 1 demon, bound in circle. The final exorcism had begun, but Malfra is old. She doesn't burn easy, and the rules? They're not always enough. She's inside the candle. That's what he said before he died, and he had my face. The final ritual has begun, but something is wrong. Malfra isn't fighting to stay in Lucia. She's waiting, watching, because I think I've made a terrible mistake, and by the time I fix it, I may not be me anymore. The triad burned with fierce, holy fire. Lucia knelt at the center, her skin sallow and slick with sweat, her breath shallow. Sister Magdalena and Sister Maria stood on opposite ends of the triad star, chanting the Discorporare on Imam right. I moved clockwise, drawing blood wards on the floor with sanctified ash. The fake version of me, the mimic, was gone, scorched to ash by my fire rune. But his final words rang in my mind like a curse. She's already inside the candle. I looked toward the altar. 3 candles flickered, white for purity, red for blood, and black for sacrifice. One of them had changed. The black candle. Its flame was no longer flickering. It was dancing, pulsing as though breathing, as if something inside it was awake. I stepped closer. It hissed, and the air turned cold enough to frost the edges of the circle. I glanced at Lucia. Her lips were moving, but not in sync with the rite. Her voice was out of step, disjointed, wrong. Something was off. Stop chanting. I barked. Now, Magdalena flinched but obeyed. Maria hesitated, then quieted too. Lucia's voice kept going, on its own. Et nox veritatem suam deverabit. That was not in the ritual. That wasn't Latin. That was Enochian, the language of fallen angels. Lucia's eyes shot open, pure white. Her body levitated a foot off the ground, then snapped upright midair, head thrown back unnaturally. The black candle's flame turned blue, and then, boom, an invisible shockwave knocked all of us back. Candles extinguished, symbols burned away. Lucia collapsed to the ground, gasping. In the dead silence that followed, Sister Maria spoke first. That wasn't Malfra. I turned to her, dread rising. What do you mean? She looked at me, and her expression chilled me to the bone. It wasn't just Malfra, she whispered. She brought something else. We gathered in the chapel. I sealed all entrances and activated the sanctuary dome using my last relic gem. The others stared at me, waiting for a plan. I was running out of those. She's not just mimicking people, I said. She's nesting, multiplying, spreading pieces of herself into objects into us. I turned to Sister Maria. You were with Bellamy during the Buenos Aires incident. What exactly happened? Maria's face went pale. She took a long, shaky breath. We thought it was a possession. One girl, one demon. Typical signs. But Bellamy said something was layered. Every time we exorcised a spirit, another surfaced, like peeling skin off an onion. She swallowed hard until we reached the core. And what we found wasn't human. What was it? Her hands trembled. Not a demon. A memory. Living memory. A relic of original sin, buried in human consciousness. Malfour wasn't trying to possess Lucia. She was trying to rebuild herself from broken pieces left in all of us. I stared at her. Are you saying we all carry fragments of her? Maria nodded. That's why she could take reflections. Because deep down, we're all mirrors. That was when we heard it. The bell tower, ringing. But no one had pulled the cord. I ran outside, relic dagger drawn. The bell was swaying violently, clanging over and over. Wind howled from the west, even though the air was still, and painted in thick, tar-like strokes across the stones of the tower was a new message. The third eye is open. Then I heard her voice again, not from above, from within me. You broke Rule 14. I staggered, gripping my head. That rule again. The one they never told us. My relic buzzed. An emergency transmission. I flicked it open. Confidential. Edict 14. Should the third eye open, cease all rites. Cut the triad. Burn the vessel. Flee. Flee. The Vatican was telling me to abandon the exorcism. I turned to look back at the convent and saw it. The shadows had changed. They were moving. Every corner of the convent shimmered with something unnatural. Walls that seemed to breathe, floorboards that twisted when you stepped, reflections that lagged half a second too long. Reality was glitching. Lucia's possession had infected the building. Sister Magdalena ran up beside me, panting. Lucia's missing again, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Of course she was. The triad had failed. And now, Rule 14 had activated. We were no longer tracking a demon. We were inside her nest. The chapel was desecrated. The crucifix hung upside down. The holy water had turned to brackish oil. Candles bled wax the color of rust. We followed the trail. Scratch marks on the stone. Traces of blood that shimmered oddly under the lamplight. Down into the crypt. It was always the crypt. I took point. Magdalena behind me. Maria brought up the rear. The descent felt endless. The staircase folded in impossible ways. Stairs that curved and led back to where you started. We lost track of time, of distance. We started hearing voices. First Lucia's, then Bellamy's, then our own, whispering doubts, memories, regrets. And then came the static, the sound of the mirror breaking, over and over. Suddenly, we reached the bottom, and a crypt door stood open. Inside was her. Lucia stood in a ritual circle, surrounded by mirrors. All of them cracked, all of them reflecting 1,000 different versions of me. And from her mouth came two voices. One was hers, the other was mine. You should have left when you had the chance, she whispered. Now you've broken Rule 15. I stepped inside. The mirrors warped. Some show me as child, others as an old man. One show me dead. I looked at the real Lucia. Are you still in there?" Her eyes trembled. She nodded barely. Maria stepped beside me, drawing a containment circle in the salt-laced dust. "I could try to seal her again," she said, "but we'll need a blood anchor." "I'll do it," Magdalena said, stepping forward. "No," I said quickly. "You're already compromised. I saw the mark on your shoulder." She blinked, confused. "What?" "I don't." But Maria had already drawn the dagger. She didn't stab Magdalena. She stabbed herself. Blood poured into the circle. "No," I yelled. "You'll die." "I was always the third anchor," she said. "Bellamy made me one before he vanished. I've carried the mark since Buenos Aires." As her blood touched the circle, the mirrors howled. Actually howled. One by one, they cracked and exploded. Lucia screamed. The reflections began to bleed, and from her chest, something crawled out. Not Malphra, something older. A creature made of mouths and limbs, eyes that blinked out of order, wings made of shattered glass. It hissed, not at me, but at Maria. "Burn me and she dies," it rasped. I looked at Lucia. Her body convulsed. Her veins turned black. We were out of time. So I did the one thing I wasn't supposed to. I opened my relic case and pulled out the wound of St. Cassian, a forbidden relic, so powerful it could banish even ancient sin, so dangerous it could also kill everyone in the room. I activated it. Holy fire erupted from the case, white and searing. The creature shrieked, wings tearing apart. Lucia gasped, then collapsed. Maria collapsed too. When the fire died down, the mirrors were gone. The creature was gone. Lucia's pulse steady. But Maria, she wasn't breathing. We carried her body back to the chapel. The air was clearer. The shadow had lifted. The walls had stopped breathing. Lucia was back, but something still felt wrong. And as I lit the final consecration candle, I saw something move in the reflection of the altar. Not me, not her. A third figure, smiling. I blinked. Gone. But then I noticed something chilling. The black candle, the one from the ritual chamber, was lit again. I hadn't touched it. No one had. And there was a message scratched into the side. Part of her remains. The demon is gone. Or so we thought. The mirror shattered. The crypt cleansed. And Lucia freed. But the black candle lit itself again. Now there's something else here. Something older than Malphra, buried in Vatican silence, still watching me through my own reflection. And I just remembered what Rule 14 really means. Maria was dead. Lucia lived. The balance should have been restored. But in the days following the ritual, the signs returned, slowly, subtly. Candles that burned without flame. Shadows that didn't match their source. Lucia speaking in her sleep again, but in my voice. The Vatican sent a cleanup crew. Standard protocol. Sanctify the grounds. Erase residual energy. Cover the events with a gas leak. Excuse. I was ordered back to Rome. Not for commendation. For debriefing. Which, in Vatican terms, usually means one of two things. A promotion or a purge. I was betting on the latter. They sent me to Domus Interdictum, the Forbidden House, a white marble tomb in the heart of the city, below which the church keeps its greatest secrets. I'd never been inside, not until that day. They took my relics, my journal, my crucifix, and locked me in a room of mirrors. A single man entered, white robes, crooked eyes. He didn't blink once. Archdeacon Salvatore, keeper of Rule 14. "I know what you saw," he said. "I know what she showed you, and I know what's still inside you. I destroyed her." He smiled. "Did you?" He walked slowly around the mirror chamber, brushing dust from the frames. What do you think Rule 14 is really about? I swallowed. The third eye. He nodded. And what is the third eye? A state of perception, I said. A veil lifted. Wrong, he snapped. It is not yours to perceive. It is hers. Her eye. When she sees you, she remembers. He turned toward me now, that crooked gaze hardening. You didn't destroy Malfra. You reawakened her mother. He showed me the old texts. Not from the Bible. Not even the hidden Gospels. These were carbon-copied translations of antediluvian scrolls, written in the blood of proto-martyrs. Stories of a being known only as Inamine. The first mirror, the mother of mimics, the eye that looks back. Long before Lucifer fell, long before Eve bit the fruit, there was Inamine, a sentient reflection that split off from God's first breath. Not an angel, not a demon, something else. A flaw in the act of creation. A parasite made of perception. And her children, mimics, reflections, false identities. Demons like Malfra were just shards of her broken mind. That meant I hadn't exorcised a single demon. I'd opened the eye of the hive. I need to finish this, I told Salvatore. If part of her remains, I need to find it. No, he said. You already did. She's in you now. He pulled something from his robe. My relic dagger, still etched with Maria's blood. You broke Rule 14, he said softly. Now you must obey Rule 15. I tensed. What is Rule 15? He handed me the dagger and whispered, You must die before she dreams again. They left me in the mirror room. Just me, the dagger, and dozens of reflections. I tried to pray. The words stuck in my throat. Every mirror stared back with just enough wrongness to unnerve me. One blinked slower. Another was smiling faintly. A third had no eyes. And then one of them moved. Not me. It moved before I did. I stood up slowly. It did not. I raised the dagger. It laughed. Rule 16. If the mirror moves before you do, it's already too late. My reflection lunged. The mirror cracked. And suddenly, I was inside. I don't know how to describe the place I was taken. There were no colors, only emotion. Places made of grief, landscapes sculpted from memory, floating doorways, endless corridors of voices whispering regrets I didn't know I had. And her, Inamine, not a figure, a presence, a sensation of being watched by every version of yourself you've ever hated. She spoke with my voice. You're trying to kill what you cannot remember. I demanded to know what she wanted. You, my identity, my thoughts, my form. She didn't want to possess me. She wanted to overwrite me. I drew the relic dagger in that strange astral plane. She flinched. Her many-faced body writhed. And then, I remembered something Bellamy once said during a failed ritual. We are the locks. The demons are keys. But Inamine, she's the door. I understood what that meant now. I wasn't her victim. I was her gateway. And I had one way to seal it. I slashed open my palm in the reflection world. The blood hit the ground like mercury. I spoke the final rite. Not Latin, not Enochian, but the true name hidden in the subtext of the ancient scrolls. Asephmal Inamine Vectesser. It means, seal the mind from the mirror of God. The space trembled. Her form began to split. She shrieked, not in rage, in fear, because for the first time, someone saw her truly and refused to reflect her. I woke up in the Vatican infirmary, alive, dagger on my chest, crucifix in hand. They told me I'd been in a coma for 3 weeks. Salvatore visited me once. He didn't speak, just nodded, and handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was my new assignment, Only 3 words. Rule 17 initiated. I'm still a demon tracker, but not for exorcisms. I've been reassigned to Archivum Secrum Unit 7, a division that doesn't cast demons out. We hunt the reflections that don't match. We track mimics. Every mirror, every screen, every still puddle. She's in them, waiting, watching, and sometimes she smiles before I do. And when that happens, I leave the room. I close my eyes, because I know I'm already too late. Because I remember Rule 14 now. If you ever see yourself blink twice in a mirror, you're not alone anymore. The end.